Time now for the second half of our little home and home podcast situation that we've done this week. I was on Football 301 doing midseason awards yesterday, and he is here to do our own version of a little midseason check-in today. It is our old friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Great to see you. Great to see you back at your place too. The studio is amazing, but this feels, you said home and home. This does feel like home again. Like it's not home and away. This is back to home because you're in your home. But no, great
It's
to see
funny
you.
because I don't normally do like solo shows from there.
Yeah.
But we were doing the free agency live stream yesterday. And so I was like, am I really going to drive the
Bert.
20 minutes home? Like that doesn't make sense. And
No.
so it was the first time I've just sat on that set to do a podcast, which it was okay. But this does feel a little bit cozier.
You're back in your environment. You know exactly where all the nooks and crannies are. Like
I'm feeling great.
Yes, exactly.
We did midseason awards yesterday, and so those were official awards, right? And so those are who was the MVP, and we're gonna do that on the Athletic Football Show next week. So just to let you guys know, we are gonna have our own version of the midseason awards. We waited until after week 10 for reasons that I don't really know. I'm not sure why we scheduled it that way.
You did it like a
month
month ago, 6 weeks ago, and you're like, I guess that worked.
Beller does this. We do this all the time where I'll schedule out the mid-week shows like 6 weeks at a time, and then we'll get to the end of those 6 weeks. I will not remember which dates we scheduled them for, and then I'll be like, oh wait, I have to come up with more of those. It's definitely been a blind spot in my programming of the podcast feed over the course of the year.
How about me scheduling midseason awards on the trade deadline day? I'm not gonna lie, that was not supposed to be a package show. That was me going, we'll make it work.
I've been doing this for 15 years, and I still have no idea what the NFL calendar actually looks like, and thankfully there are people to let me know. What we're going to do today is a slight of a different version of a midseason check-in. I wanted to do this with you for a couple different reasons. One, I think it's just a fun exercise to celebrate some people who have shaped the NFL season, but maybe aren't the names at the top of those midseason awards. And, I'll tell you and the audience this. I think you do a better job than anybody in this space of watching what's happening and kind of predicting where the trends are going to go, where the league is headed, and kind of who is doing the shaping. And so I wanted to spend an hour with you today drilling down on that. Like, who are the people who have made the NFL what it has been over the first 9 weeks? And so you and I each picked out 5. So we're going to have 10-ish. I always say ish when it comes to you and I and lists.
Yes.
Names that we're going to shout out today to try to figure out.
Backup options, slashes.
Slash, honorable mention.
Yes.
The goal in this exercise is to try to pin down and figure out why has the NFL felt the way that it has this year and who have been the important figures in dictating that. And so let's just get into it. Let's hear your first one, your first character that you think has shaped what the 2025 NFL season has felt like.
This is one that's kind of been something, actually, I feel like years ago we did a free agency show, and that was maybe the first kind of indicator of what this was going to happen with this team. And that was a couple coordinators ago, actually. This is the Bills, and it's Reggie, Gilliam, and Jackson Hawes.
Jackson Hawes is one of mine as well.
Okay, it is? Okay, cool. And this is something, and really it's just been a recent kind of like thread I've been pulling. And before the season, I know I talked with you about it. I talked to multiple people. I wrote an article, did a pod, because I'm a hack, about the same thing where I was like, hey, under center stuff, tight end stuff, that's all coming back. Multiple tight end looks. And I think the Bills are the perfect kind of microcosm of exactly what's going on with the rest of the league. And for me, it's looking back to 2021 Bills to where they're at now. Because I think 2020 Bills was just, oh my God, look at this offense, so fast and everybody, so many receivers. And 2021 was like more of that, but it felt like the Bills offense hit a wall. And I told when we talked about this a little bit on the show yesterday on my show, but it was just something that has been vividly in my brain. Is that Bucs game? I think it was week 13 in 2021, and where they're running all this RPOs, all these receivers, all this stuff. So I looked at it. I was like, okay, how much of a difference is it now to what the Bills are doing this year and really last year and maybe the year before that, where they kind of lead into this? More tight ends, more Reggie Gilliam, who's tight end / fullback. It was jumbo tight ends. Now it's Jackson Hawes.
Mm-hmm.
Just the multiple personnel groupings that the Bills can get to now. They can still go 11 personnel and do a bunch of stuff, but they've had 12 unique personnel groupings this year. They've had 110 plays with Gilliam and Hawes on the field. They have a 70% passing success rate with those two on the field, by the way, which I think is hilarious. They've 20 dropbacks, 6 explosive passes too, which is just perfect. But in 2021, all right, so the Bills, 8.7% of their plays had 2 or more tight ends. That was the lowest rate in the entire NFL. In 2025, it's 29%. Which is about middle of the pack, 19th. They had 110 plays in 2021 with 0 tight ends on the field. This year, they have 0 plays with 0 tight ends on the field. They had 98 plays with 4 or more receivers on the field, which was the second highest in the league, only behind the Cardinals. This year, they have 1 play with 4 or more receivers on the field. 2 or fewer receivers, they had the second lowest rate. So that's kinda how I've kind of been able to kinda narrow, hey, 12, 21 base offense. Yeah.
2 or fewer receivers is a good way to bucket that, actually. I should have that's clean.
That's how I've learned to kind of filter
Yeah.
it. Just, I mean, I guess we could talk about this off air, but that's how I've learned how to filter it as kind of like a better way to look at it. But second lowest rate in the NFL in 2021 with 2 or fewer receivers. This year, they're middle of the pack, 37.6%. But the thing is, it's not just like, oh, do it to do it. It's not a magic wand, more tight ends, more play action, all that stuff. Not a magic wand. The results are striking when you look at what they're able to do from these looks with early downs with 2 or fewer receivers, their first in EPA per play, second in rushing success rate, third in success rate, fourth in passing success rate. It's tangible, the kind of what they put on defenses and what they make defenses try to adapt to what they're doing, because they're comfortable getting into these fullback looks, these tight end looks, these spread looks when they want to get to. And it's just cool to see the layers year after year after year that this offense has added personnel-wise, scheme-wise, and everything. And so I think those two are kind of they're indicative of what the rest of this offense and the transition that's gone under Josh Allen and now Joe Brady as the.
I love that, and I think I had Jackson Hawes for similar reasons to that, but also kind of offshoot reasons to that. And so I tweeted something earlier this season while going back and watching tape, and I think I was watching I can't remember which team I was watching in a negative way. It might have been the Broncos. It might have been like 3 or 4 weeks into the season, I was watching the Broncos offense. The Broncos tight end depth is Adam Troutman and Nate Adkins,
Yeah.
and it's kind of
Yeah.
whatever. But they still use a decent amount of heavy personnel because there's a lot of personnel variety on the Broncos. And I'm watching the Broncos run game with these multiple tight ends on the field. And then you contrast that to a team like the Bills. And my prevailing thought coming out of that was you can find out who the good offense is, and the Broncos have gotten better on offense since then. But I think a general rule, you can find out and realize just by watching the tight ends who the good offenses are and who the bad offenses are in the NFL. Can your tight ends block, and do they
Yep.
want to block, right?
Yes.
Do they give a shit about blocking? And so I think those are connected, but also there are nuances as to why they're different. And so that part of it, where if you can get 2 tight ends on the field that want to block, that goes such a long way in how it affects your run game, how it affects so many things that you can do because they're viable players that you can keep on the field. And I think Jackson Hawes is a very good example of that. And I think there are so many teams that have struggled with those looks this year. Like when the Eagles early in the season were using so much more 12 personnel, their second blocking tight end was such a 0 that it was hurting their offense consistently when they were trying to run out of those looks. And
Yes.
so I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, how are you creating like 4 and 5 man surfaces in the run game with more big bodies? The Bills are doing it with multiple tight ends. The Bills are doing it with a lot of 13 personnel, a lot of 22 personnel. Well, that's not how the Bills did it last year. The Bills last year were the team pushing forward all of the jumbo looks that we were seeing in the NFL. Well, now, because they have Jackson Hawes, he solves a lot of those same problems while being an actual pass catcher compared to like an Alec Anderson. And so the Bills have gone away from 6 offensive lineman looks this year, but the league has adopted them. And the league has adopted them for, I think, 2 reasons. One, because there are so many second and third tight ends who are non-factors in the run game, if we're trying to create those surfaces, why don't I just put another offensive lineman out there? Like, that's the only
Right.
viable way I can attack the edges in the run game. And 2, more and more personnel groupings that used to immediately elicit base defense don't anymore. 12 personnel, teams play nickel to it. 21 now even. More and more teams are playing nickel to 21. So the only way that you can dictate personnel, or the only sure way that you can dictate personnel to opposing defenses right now, is essentially 13 or 22 or 6 offensive linemen. And so the Bills can do it with Jackson Hawes because he's a viable blocker, but so many of these other teams are doing it by adding a 6 offensive lineman to the field. The Eagles are doing that more now. I mean, just the percentages that we're seeing over the last month or so are ticking up and up and up. The Bears are doing it more. The Dolphins were doing it a lot against the Ravens. And so that idea of how can I put the right amount of big bodies on the field to dictate the way the game is going to go to opposing defenses, Jackson Hawes is an example of that, in part because of what the Bills are doing, and also in part because of what the Bills aren't doing anymore because they have Jackson Hawes. So I think in so many ways, he's like an interesting kind of inflection point for how offensive football in the NFL feels this year.
they learned the right lessons, and I mean, I can't remember how many times you and I got frustrated with the Chargers offense under Joe Lombardi, and really it was more the personnel, and it was just more, "Oh, Gerald Everett's our only tight end on the roster? Okay, let's
God, I
run it
know.
towards, oh god, okay, that play just got nuked." And people were always talking about the offensive line. I was like, "Well, they don't have a tight end that can block, so they only could do a certain amount of runs, so they're already screwed before they even line up, even if the offensive line was good." And just seeing just the transition and really in just our time period, even just kind of from we've worked together and onwards, it was that I just watching how teams went for so RPO heavy to just separating it. Runs, passes. Okay, now we've realized, oh, okay, everybody wanted a receiving tight end. Okay, they create mismatches. We get based on the field. Defenses went, well, we'll just go big nickel and we'll have our safety be the slot. And that became the standard now. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
standard. It's
Oh,
more
well, trust me,
no,
that
yeah, I'm
conversation's coming
sure.
in about 10 minutes.
I'm sure there's a couple. No, but and it's just kind of again, it's just everybody reacts to what the other teams are doing, what they're seeing is working. But the thing is, you always need the tools to get to that point. And I think a lot of teams were just, or even just more personnels and or personnel departments, I should say, is realizing, okay, some of these blocking tight ends aren't total stiffs, and we also have to realize their usage. Josh Oliver is super important for the Vikings and what they want to do, but he might run 3 different types of routes and none of them are past 8 yards. But that's fine because they have a receiving tight end that's valid in Hawkinson. They have receiver looks they can get to, but he's a valid option in the passing attack. I mean, what the Rams are doing, it's been so cool watching them transition from 11 personnel to 3 tight ends and just do whatever they want.
It's a great example to throw out there too. Again,
There's so much
it
cool,
goes from
so
1
cool.
to 3, not 1 to
Yeah.
2. Don't you find that
Yep.
interesting? Because
Yeah.
12 isn't getting you what you want it to anymore. And so now it's either 13 or like a fullback and multiple tight ends or 6 offensive linemen. That's the only way to like make the button do what you want it to
Yeah.
do because it's not
And
doing it anymore otherwise.
it was so receiving was such a premium, and honestly, on the defensive equivalent of this is pass rushers were such a premium, and now it's funny what it has become more valued is can you block as a receiver or a tight end, and or as a running back too in pass protection, which most of them can do now, or on defense is can you stop the run as well? But, okay, we can find pass rushers now. Don't get me wrong, it's really hard to find the best pass rushers, but the baseline has risen so much that now, it's the money ball of it all. What is the thing that is out of vogue that we can find an advantage? It was blocking tight ends, and I think now more teams are realizing, oh, this is actually great. Watch the 49ers when Kittle came back. Of
Oh
course,
my God.
Kittle opens up so much, but they have Luke Farrell on the roster. And now they have 2 guys that they can legit run at the point of attack. So it's been a really cool thing. Like, I know Jackson Hawes is like, really, he's so important, but he is so indicative of what all these teams are doing. And I think it's just been really cool to watch the Bills' transformation to this year.
It's fun because, like, when I watch the Bears right now and you try to check the boxes of what good offenses feel like and you watch Colson Level and block, that's one of those
Yes.
where it's
That's
like,
why I got
hell
high
yeah,
on 'em.
right? Like, it's like
Yes.
this is the type of stuff you want to see from a good offense. And again, I do think it's a through line from a lot of the good ones that we've seen. All right, so we both had Jackson Hawes on our list, which is hilarious. Who's your
Started
second
batting
one?
leadoff, Jackson Hawes. God, make sure he gets the at bats. I mean, we already hinted at a couple more. I actually had a lot of offensive ones now that I look at it. But I'll just even talk about the you just mentioned Colson Loveland. I'll talk about Ben Johnson, Joe Thuney, and Dan Rousher. The Bears' run game essentially is what I
Darnell
want.
Wright is one of mine.
This is anyone that listened to the Football 301 yesterday, it was so great when we just, okay, let's talk about our short list too. And we'd have like the exact same 4 or 5 guys. And I was like, come on, without talking to each other once about it. I got to talk about the Bears because just the Bears run game. I know Caleb gets so much of the headlines and I do think his play has improved. I have some stats if we do want to talk about it, but this is the most explosive offense in the NFL. No caveats. Just the most explosive offense in the NFL. It's the Chicago Bears. There's no start point there. It's from week 1 to now. And that kind of shocked me, but that's what Ben Johnson aims for. It's an offensive philosophy I believe in is hunting for explosives. And then the run game is your jab. But they're 4th in rushing success rate after the Colts, the Bills, the Commanders, and the Bears. And the Bears are in 4th. First in explosive play rate, first in explosive rush rate, 7th in explosive play or pass rate, 11th in EPA per play. This has been a borderline top 10 offense. Now, they've gone against the second easiest schedule according to
Yeah,
DVOA.
so that
has
was the
to
one
be
caveat I was going to throw
has
out
to
there.
be said. And guess what? Who they go against this week? The Giants, who have the 32nd ranked rushing DVOA defense. And then it gets a little bit tougher after that. But this has just been this is what Ben Johnson believes in, and I do think that the early returns or what has grown, especially after the bye week, really since about week 4, you can see it. It's tangible. Not all the results have been perfect. We talked about the Ravens game a little bit, but the baseline stuff has risen so much, and what they're trying to do is the harder stuff of offense, and there's already early returns. It's not like the 2021, 2022 Falcons conversations where it's like, "Oh, that's some cool stuff." It's like, "No, this is legit good stuff that's actually working." And I see how they're trying to use Caleb, or how Ben Johnson's trying to use Caleb, more under center, more play action, more stuff working over the middle that's not just a one-man routes, true high-lows. Caleb's a better throwing outside, and I think Ben Johnson knows that, and his numbers have boosted on the outside. But seeing the inside stuff happen, just picture Jared Goff and the Lions offense, that works with the run game that they're trying to go for. So just I had to bring it up because now the Bears are winning some games, but this offense has been encouraging to me. Yes, going some weaker defenses, but I do think the bones are getting made, and now they're really adding the muscle and everything else, the ligaments to this offense. I've been very, very encouraged about what I'm seeing.
I totally agree from like a structural standpoint. Like the run game and what they're doing in the run game right now is so
So,
fun to watch. And I
yes.
mean, and Benedict's made a difference too. Like them
Yeah.
dropping him in after the bye at left tackle, and he's still a question on in pass protection. Like that's going to be something they have to deal with for the rest of the season. But what he's giving them in the run game, I think you notice the difference. Like they now have
Yes.
like 5+ run blockers when those guys are deployed in the right way, and you feel that along, like we just said, with the tight ends. And so that combined with understanding all right, these are the runs we want Swift on, these are the runs we want Manon Guy on. Let's get Swift in space. Let's let him do what he does
Yes.
well. And so I just think it's so well put together there. And I think Ben and Dan Rousher deserve a lot of credit for that. And why I wanted to mention Darnell Wright is like kind of an extension of that. And so when watching Darnell Wright, essentially, so he missed the Raider game. So he's been back
Yep,
since the
that's right.
bye. And you watch what Darnell Wright has done at right tackle for the Bears over the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's got like 3 or 4 like highlight plays
Yes.
as an offensive lineman every single week. And what's so interesting to me is that I was excited about Darnell Wright by the end of last year. You saw the flashes of like what he could eventually become. But with all non-quarterbacks, I think we take these guys and we just think they are what they are, right? Like these are
Right.
fixed assets. Like an offensive lineman is an offensive lineman, a receiver is a receiver. We spend so much time worrying about how circumstances dictate the pluses and minuses of quarterback play, and we don't think enough about that for individual position players. And so,
Yes.
why I think Darnell Wright is such a fascinating kind of jumping off point for this season in general is that I think we've seen so many teams get different sorts of results from their offensive lines because of the situations those guys are being put in. Some of those are structural, right? Some of those are we're going to put a ton of base defense on the field. We're going to use a ton of play action, that kind of stuff. That's Seattle, right? Like we're going to make
Yeah,
sure that
yeah.
you're in base. We're going to use a ton of play action. We're going to have very few true pass sets. We're going to allow the offensive line's life to be easier. That's one version of it. I think the Colts have done that. I think the Patriots have done that. And you've seen the results from that. But it can extend to like individual offensive linemen. Like Darnell Wright is being weaponized in the Bears offense in a way that very few tackles are. And I know this is a lofty comparison, but like when you watch him in that 58 this year, like there are like Penei Sewell flashes from what Penei Sewell has looked like over the last few years with Ben Johnson. That only happens because the offensive staff understands how to weaponize him properly. And so I just think so often, whether it's offensive linemen individually or offensive linemen as a unit, we just don't think about how much their play can change because of who the people in charge are. And I think that Darnell Wright is a very, very good example of that individually this year.
He's a great example. Even as a prospect, he got narratively scouted, in the sense that, I mean, like, "Oh, you're coming from the Tennessee offense that passes all the time, and you're big and like this. Oh, okay, all right, I know exactly what you are." But it was like he was way more athletic than he got credit for, but also it was the Tennessee offense was a bunch of down blocks and physical at you, which makes sense. I mean, look at Darnell Wright, he's gigantic. But it just that makes sense. And then if you watch this Bears offense right now, so everything that you're saying is, okay, get him out in space, get him on screens, get him down blocking. I tweeted it, other people have tweeted it. The block he had on that 4th and 1
Oh
against
my
the
God.
Bengals. It's one of the best blocks of the entire year. He truly moved Shamar Stewart 4 gaps over. It was
And puts him in the
do,
ground.
do.
Four
It puts him
four
in the
gaps
ground
over and
and
puts
takes
him in
out
the ground.
and bowling pins his own teammate and another guy and another Bengals defender. Like it's a true highlight reel block with Roman Dunze digging out the safety. So I do have to give him a shout out as well. But no, that's a great point. And I think I would even say this defensively, some guys, this what happens as well, where guys are like, well, this is our coverage stuff. I mean, what's going on with like the Cowboys or something of that sort. It's like, or really actually maybe the best example, the Jets defense. Aaron Glenn goes there and goes, oh yeah, I'm just going to run my stuff or man coverage and quarters on first and second down. All right, well, maybe your guys aren't made out to be man press defenders for 30 snaps a game. Like sometimes it's just the personnel just doesn't match, and you hope these coaches figure that out quicker than later, sooner than later, but some don't. And I think Darnell Wright's a great example of that. It's just, I mean, just watching the whole run, their offensive line work right now. It's just like you can tell that
That right
Jonah
side
Jackson
with
looks,
him and Jonah Jackson on some
Jonah
of those
Jackson
double
looks
teams,
so
that's
confident.
a lot of beef, my friend.
Yes,
A lot
and
of
it,
beef.
and it makes, and even like Drew Dahlman makes it fits better. Oh God, sorry, we can go even on and on with this. Is sometimes guys are, oh, we're a zone team, so let's get a bunch of scrappy, run fast, quick hitting guys. You don't want to drop back with a bunch of Drew Dahlmans, over and over. But if you insulate him with Jonah Jackson, boof,
It's the
Joe
Jason Kelsey
Thuney,
thing. I mean, it's the for years and
yes,
years and years, the Eagles putting 330-pound guards
yes.
next to Jason Kelsey
It's
as a way to
it's
kind
one
of
of
account for that.
it's what my dad did with the Vikings. They had Jeff Christie, who's like a former fullback as well from Pitt, 285 pounds. Then they have Dave Dixon, who's 350 pounds, and it was Randall McDaniel and then other guys like at three. So it was like it's the thing is, and also that's another thing too. I've been thinking about this with pass rushers and offensive line. Everyone wants 2 tackles, or you want 2 edge rushers. I really think now it's edge rusher and a D tackle. It's a tackle and a guard. You want you want one of each as your star guys because of how the pockets are getting created now and all the defensive movement that's happening. If you have 2 edge guys, I actually think that's easier to game plan against. Same with 2 good tackles and maybe a weak interior line. So this is just kind of an offshoot idea,
Yeah.
but it is something
It's a
I've
team
really
building
been
thought, though, that's important to keep in mind.
that I've really been kind of focusing on, but I do think that the Bears are a good example. All right, Darnell Wright, Joe Thuney, boom, I got 2 star quality guys now, and I think the pockets, I mean, sorry, my last little Caleb stat here. I told you I always go long. Their sack rate, Caleb Williams' sack rate has gone from 10.8% to 5.2. The pressure sack's gone from 28.2% to 13.6%. That's some of his decision making, but that's also the offensive line and the comfort everybody has in this offense right now.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with the quarterback, right? Like, I think that there's still gaps he needs to fill in. There's still elements of his
Absolutely.
game that are frustrating. But for the first time in a very long time, I have a lot of confidence that he's being put in a position where
Yep.
he has a chance, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's on him to figure it out because every
Yes.
aspect of what is being put in place right now is giving him a real chance to get where he needs to get to. And I can't tell you when I've ever felt that way in my life.
You mean when Hackett was there? You know, we were feeling that?
I
Not Hackett,
truly
what's his name? Getsy. When Getsy was there, sorry. For, different Packers assistant.
I truly don't know if I've ever felt that way. And so that is a very strange but welcome feeling in my life over the past
Yeah.
9 weeks or so.
It's
All
been
right, so I had
interesting.
Darnell Wright as my second one. So that with couple Bears tinge one. Who's your third one?
All right, mine is I'll go with the defensive player finally. I'll go Talanoa Hufanga for the Broncos. And really just a way to talk about the Broncos defense. But I could have gone Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach, PS2, Riley Moss, Vance Joseph. I could just go on and on with this defense. But Hufanga has been one of the best free agent additions, full stop. Just that no caveats, just one of the best free agent signings this entire offseason, which I was hopeful for because I've been a fan of his game. He was just bad, had the injury, came back from that with the 49ers. 49ers had to let him go. They had decisions to make. But he fits this defense perfectly from a mindset, that attacking first mindset, the awareness that Hufanga plays with. He's one of the smartest defenders in the NFL, and I think that kind of gets underrated with him. He's a former quarterback. I think that's another thing. It's like the classic John Lynch former quarterback to headhunting safety pipeline.
Yeah.
That apparently
You know,
exists.
that old chestnut. Yeah, we see a lot of those.
The Vikings had one. Brian Russell was another one that I could throw in there. But yeah, it's a weird kind of transition for some of these guys. This defense, first in success rate, first in yards per play, first in EP per play, fourth in DVOA, first in sack rate, first and third down defense, first in red zone defense. You know, they're battling with the Texans, Seahawks, a couple other teams as the best defense, but it's like, all right, top 4. I'm pretty, I'll put it that way.
That so rarely does that happen where we before the season we're like, these are going to be the best defenses.
And it
And then we got into the season
happens.
and, like, those are the best defenses. Like, if I
Yep.
had to pick 3 coming into the season, and Derek and I did this a lot this offseason where it's hard to predict the best one, and so it's like, I think X defense has a chance to be the best defense in the
Yeah, yeah.
league, and we picked, like, the group we would say that about. The Seahawks, the Broncos, and the Texans are the 3 at the top of that list, and they have been 3 of, if not the best defenses, then 3 of the best defenses in the league. It just
Yeah,
doesn't always happen that way, but it has
it
happened
doesn't.
this year.
I'm looking at my list, and I had the Eagles in my top 4 as well. So 3 of the top 4 basically it ended up being like this. And we'll watch one of the Eagles in the second half. We'll see.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
hasn't been bad
exactly.
so far.
It's still a
But
lot of ball to be played.
that's a great point though, as far I mean, but they had so much carryover as far as personnel, play caller, how they win is not one of those where it's like, well, you rode that high wire for that season. We'll see if it craps out this year. It's been really cool to see. It's not been all perfect. I do think there's ways you can run on this Broncos defense, but I think what's so cool with Hufanga is watching him. They're so downhill with everything. They're just so fast and attacking. Everybody's attacking in this defense, and seeing Hufanga go like, all right, this play's happening, this play. Oh, you're doing that? Oh, I'm going to go soft this flat route. And just happens so quick. He's one of the most fun players to watch on film. He kind of epitomizes this defense, even being the newest member of it. And so I just wanted to give him and this defense a total shout out.
So the sawing off stuff in the flat, and I know there's a couple like really nice moments from him as a blitzer so far this year.
Yes.
What
Yes.
other like layers do you think he has added to the defense that they might not have had last year because he wasn't there?
With those, those being a safety was some of the stuff too. Because when you're playing that much man coverage, stuff can pop.
Mhm.
Hey, guy doesn't tackle, bring down. So being around the ball. So it's just another body around the ball. They like to create islands for everybody, whether it's man coverage, whether it's blitzing, because they'll rush 5. Somebody has to win a one-on-one. They're betting that they're always going to win a one-on-one. What if you don't? Well, there's Hufanga, so like that's another aspect too. It's not just that he's at the line of scrimmage like Jamal Adams or something like that. It's that he's everywhere. He is a typical box safety, but you got to remember in the 49ers world, he was a quarter safety that
Mhm.
had to play downhill. So it was actually an easier transition than maybe I even thought for him. I thought it was like, oh, he's a good player. He'll figure it out. But it's just been, boom, hit the ground running once he's been out there. So I would say being an actual safety has helped on top of the attacking stuff.
All right, my next one here is Kyle Hamilton.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's
Go on.
and you listen, we've talked so much about Kyle Hamilton over the last few years, but what is happening with the Ravens defense right now, I think is fascinating on a couple different levels. I did a video about it that's going to come out later this week, and just like it's kind of a simple idea, but it's like Kyle Hamilton as Winston Wolfe. Like that's kind of what's happening right
It's the
now, where
fixer.
he's just like the fixer for the Ravens
Yeah.
defense. So like whenever you have a problem, like we're calling Kyle Hamilton. So last year, the
So true.
Ravens want to use Kyle Hamilton in the nickel because Kyle Hamilton is a weapon, right? Like if you're not using him in the nickel, you're not realizing all of the benefits he can give you as a team. But the way that the Ravens defense was playing over the first half of last season, they were giving up more explosive passes than any team in the NFL. And
Mhm.
saying, all right, we're going to move him to safety. Like this is what we have to do based on our personnel. And last year, they still had Brandon Stevens. They could play Marlon Humphrey in the nickel, and safety was the area where they were weakest. So they go from allowing the most explosive passes on a rate basis in the first 10 weeks of the season last year to the least. Not like the most to the middle of the pack, the most to the least after they move Kyle Hamilton to deep safety. So coming into this year, the thought was we're going to draft Malachi Starks in the first round. We still have our Darius Washington. So by doing that, we are able to weaponize Kyle Hamilton again. 2 weeks after the draft happens, our Darius Washington tears his Achilles. So now we're at a place where Kyle Hamilton has to play deep safety based on the rest of our personnel. Well, you watch the Ravens over the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and their injuries are part of it. But you watch the defense, and it's like there's just something missing here, right? Like the second outside corner spot's kind of a weakness, and the front seven's not playing the way that you want to. And so you're looking at it, and you're saying, all right, their biggest weakness is outside corner. If you just look at it straight personnel-wise, because Shobi Wuzie and Jair Alexander not giving you what you want. And then they trade for a safety. Well, why can you do that? Because with Kyle Hamilton, your needs are fungible because he can do whatever. So they trade for Alohi Gilman. Kyle Hamilton immediately moves back full-time to nickel. Marlon Humphrey pops outside, and you still have Nate Wiggins playing really well. So with one safety trade, you solve 3 positions because Kyle Hamilton can play for you. And then you watch him over the last couple weeks, he's a maniac. Like what he was doing in the Bears game and what he's doing in the Dolphins game, he's setting the edge against the run. He's making plays as a blitzer. He's all over the place. He's covering Devon Achane one-on-one on fades from the slot.
Yeah.
Like, there is
Yes, that
no
was
one
actually
like
great.
him. And
Yeah,
so the fact that the Ravens can just use this one person to solve whatever ails their defense in a given season is insane,
it
but
is.
that's who he is. And so I think
Yep.
there are other things I wanna dig into as well, but that's kind of the first thought is that, like, this guy, I almost mentioned him yesterday, but didn't wanna spoil it. Like, he won't be defensive player of the year or anything like that because of the stats and just how we give out that award. But when you look at the most load-bearing defensive players in the NFL, he's in the top 5. Like, I think it's undeniable.
It's like almost you wish there was an all defense team version. I know there's Pro Bowls and all pros, but like in basketball, it's like just the top 5 defenders. Any position. Like, you know what I mean? Like just it doesn't matter the position label, just you who are the top 5 defenders? Okay, yeah. Yeah, he's one of them. I'm totally with you. I did a segment on Hamilton last week for, on NFL Network, and this was kind of the crux of it all was moving since week 6, I'm sorry, weeks 1 through 4, he aligned as a deep safety 71% of the time, nearly 72%. Since week 6, he's aligned there 0.9%. So 1% of the time he's been a deep safety, truly been in the slot, in the box. And the Ravens went from the worst rushing success rate, or worst run defense in terms of rushing success rate. Honestly, it was historically bad. It was, I think it was going on next gen stats. They go back to 2016. It was the worst rushing defense over the first month of the season in their database. And then since week 6, like you said, now there's 6 in rushing success rate. They're 9th overall in success rate. I mean, they went from allowing, shoot, almost like 6 yards a run, it felt like, and now they're allowing less than 4 yards a run. And it's just Hamilton, his awareness, one of the smartest players in the NFL, the size he has too, and just that functional athleticism. It's like, okay, now it's truly, I know everyone wants to just say like everybody's a hybrid or scheme independent or whatever you want to say. He's a tweener in a good way, where it's just
But
like
you need those, and
you
that's
do.
like
That's what the
that's the
NFL is
next
now.
the other thing I wanted to mention is that, like, if you look, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. As a defense, what are you doing to prevent teams from manipulating you? How can you make sure that the game is not being dictated to you? I think structurally right now, the best defense in the NFL in terms of the way that it is built is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks this year traded up in the second round for a player to do one specific thing. Their goal in drafting Nick Emenwari was to put him in the slot and never have to think about personnel again. No matter what you do, we're going to play nickel to whatever you do. You line up as many tight ends and fullbacks and bull as you want to. We're going to stay in the same 11 because we feel good about that. And Seattle this year on non inside the 10 plays has been a nickel 90% of the time. And I'll be really curious with Hamilton now down there, do the Ravens play any more base defense? They didn't against the Dolphins, which that's a Dolphins thing. Poor
Yeah.
Dolphins. All these teams are trying to find ways to get base defense on the field. The Dolphins run so much 21 personnel and have over the last few years, and teams just stopped. They were like,
They
we
just
don't.
realized like we don't need to
Yeah,
worry about this. Yeah.
it's fun that you guys want to do this. We're not going to give you an extra linebacker. And so the Dolphins were like, fine. You won't do it to that. I'll put 6 offensive linemen on the field. And the Ravens were like, yeah, we don't care. We're still going to play nickel to your jumbo. And it's just Mike McDaniels trying so hard. And because of the way the offense is built, he just can't get there. And so I wonder, was that all nickel all the time thing from the Ravens? Is that a Dolphins thing? Or is that something they feel like they can do for the rest of the year? I do think we'll see them right up there with the Seahawks when it comes to nickel percentages to any personnel grouping. And if you can play like that, it gives you such an advantage. And Hamilton is the reason you can play like that because he's 6'4", 220. He's as big as a linebacker. So
Yeah.
your run defense doesn't struggle or get hampered with him in that spot. And so I think more and more teams finding that guy. Hamilton, Nick Emenwari is that. Cooper DeJean, who is not going to play as much slot now with Michael McCarter there, but like that was why the Eagles could play nickel to everything last year. Like those types of guys are just skeleton key players right now based on what offenses are trying to do to manipulate defenses in the NFL.
You know what's so funny is the team that in my head lived in nickel for years and years, the Bills, are the ones shifting away from it,
They're
which
playing
is
more base this year than ever.
so weird. It's like, and I was like, oh, it's because Teron Johnson's hurt. I'm like, no, he's playing in this game. This is just what they want to do. And but speaking why I think of that too, as you mentioned 220, the Bills linebackers are like 215. Kyle Hamilton is like bigger than the Bills' base linebackers. And no, but all this discussion too is like you mentioned that teams are going nickel to 21. This is why they can, is because now these slot guys are 220. They're the size of somebody, they're not that much smaller than linebackers, or I'm sorry, fullbacks and every tight ends. Just yeah, it's just the hybridization, the everybody's flattening as far as position labels. Like they're just going out of the way. It's just the spots you can fill. And I've kind of also said this too about when I'm scouting guys for the draft, is to really emphasize if the guy is a corner slash slot or a safety slash slot, because
Mhm.
that is so I mean, honestly, in a weakling system kind of thing, but it's just like offensive line. Is he a center and a guard, or is he a guard and a tackle, or is he just a tackle? Like same exact thing for DBs. Is he an interior guy or is he outside? You mentioned Hamilton. That's another thing about why Marlon Humphrey's so cool. He can play the slot or outside, and he's good at both. So, like, I mean, it's just really cool how they're able to get to that. And I don't know what to make of the Ravens right now, but it's still wide open for them. So, and
I
he's a
still
big
don't
part of
know
that.
either. I mean, it's
I
one of
don't, I
those
don't
where,
know what
like,
to think of him. Yeah.
my thought is, like, and I just think, yeah, obviously Lamar didn't play in that game, so the Lamar offense, I don't know what to make of it. But the fact that they were able to give the Bears such a hard time based on
Uh
how
huh.
well the Bears have been playing against
Uh huh.
bad defenses out of the bye, that's just something where it's like, okay, like that's a signal to me. Like you can beat up on the Dolphins, but that Bears game, I don't think we should just write it off of like, oh, it's the Bears, like they're supposed to do that.
No.
The Bears offense is playing well enough that that is a notable performance from the defense. We'll see what the Lamar offense does against a real opponent. Like that, we're still
Yeah.
waiting on that.
Absolutely. When they're not playing the Dolphins defense, who are waving white flags on every snap of the ball, it's just
Like,
waving them from
shocking
week
that
one.
constructing a cornerback room that you signed in August isn't going to go a long way over the course of the season.
It's not even fun to say "I told you so" with them.
I know.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just
There's
that they're one of those teams
I
where it's just
derive
like
no pleasure from it.
none, none. It's just one of those where I was like, yeah. Was anyone that looked at this realized what was about to happen? It was even worse than I was expecting, which actually also speaks to what the Falcons are turning into right now. But that's a whole nother conversation. Actually, this whole thing reminds me of too. This whole personnel usage and everything was a person I know that works with Tom Brady now. He's kind of like helps out with his, the commentating stuff. Brady had a whole rant apparently in a meeting one time about how it took him years to get defenses back to base because they were getting so annoyed that everyone was going to nickel to everything, and they just wanted to get the base to throw. And so they're like, all right, 12 personnel? No, you guys are going nickel. Jakob Johnson, fullback. Okay. Now you guys are good. Okay. Now we got another linebacker on the field. So they became back a fullback team and back to a tight end team because they're just trying to get freaking 3 linebackers on the field and 4 DBs. I just think
And
it's
that's
pretty
the
funny.
struggle this year. Like that is
Yep,
the struggle in the NFL. Like that is the push and the pull. And figuring out
it
what's
is.
going to get it for you, it brings us back to the Jackson Hawes point. Like it's all connected. And so I think
It
that's the
is.
fun part about this. All right,
It
so that's
is.
3 each for both of us. Who is your fourth one? Your fourth guy that in your mind has shaped how the NFL season has played out to this point.
So it's not really a guy. It was more of a figureheads, and so I don't know how to like even say it. I'll say Chris Shula is the way to do it. He won assistant coach for me at the midway point. So let's act like I said Clint Kubiak. So it's not like I'm cheating here. But really, it's more how I want to talk about is the important people for the Rams have really shaped the NFL this year. The Sean McVays, the Chris Shulas, the Matthew Staffords. I was trying to find some hipster guy in there, maybe Colby Parkinson. Okay, maybe that's the guy that I want to talk about here. Byron Young, I guess. We talked about him a little bit yesterday, but it's just the offense, defense, QB. It's all cooking. I think they are on the forefront of whatever is going on in the league. I know this is something you and I talked about this summer. Again, I'm a hack. I wrote about it, podcasted about it, is that under center dropbacks for the offense. Okay, so I know I just mentioned Chris Shula. I want to talk about the whole Rams right now. Under center dropbacks, boom. We're going old school with our passing game. And guess what? More teams are doing it. And it's also the results have been good out of those looks as well.
It's so
And
awesome to watch. It's hilarious.
so much fun.
My favorite play, my favorite under center dropback of the season so far is Seattle on Sunday night against Washington. The touchdown to
I know
Elijah
exactly what you're talking
Arroyo.
about. Yep.
There's no play fake on the play, and the defense reacts like there is a play fake
They
because of what
freeze.
their expectations are when
Yep.
you are under center. And so watching the impact of it, even if you kind of understand why it should work that way, has been incredible. Like it is, you are playing with like human nature and
Yeah.
expectations in a way that is incredibly cool to watch.
It's everything we're talking about right now. It's tendency breaking. And how I've kind of framed it is you're adding scissors back to rock, paper, scissors. And it's like, because if I'm under center, All right, I know it's either going to be a run or a play action. If I'm a defender, all right, it's rock or paper. Now I've turned 1 out of 3 into a 50-50 battle. Watch a baseball game and hear baseball players talk about, well, he only has 2 pitches. Oh, now he has 3 pitches? Oh, that I have to honor? Okay, this is a lot harder. They have 4, it goes even more and more. But now if you add just a sprinkling, I'm just talking about this is like it was 1 or 2 a game. Now it's more like 3 or 4 a game, where it's what I learned as a drop back, passing game, and it's kind of cool to see from a teach point because now the timing makes sense from the footwork. Gun, there's been kind of a hybridization of what people do out of the gun and how they throw and on the timing of everything. But when you watch the pass play from under center, you're like, oh, wow, these route depths make sense to the drop back. It's really not, it's really refreshing almost just to watch. But just seeing all these classic concepts come back and tying in with the run game, tying in with the pass game. And it's funny just that the old stuff is the new stuff now. But like you said, it's just you're making defenses honor it and talking about personnel. That's a tendency, and this is what the Rams, Sean McVay realizes. That's why he always wanted to be 11 personnel with Gurley on the field every single snap. Was I'm not giving the defense any indication of what I'm doing. Everything looks the same. Everything is tendency. You have no tendencies on us. Every little thing that you look at, all the opponent scouting doesn't matter against us, and you guys have to guess about what we're about to do. What we've been saying kind of this whole show, if you can stay nickel, the same nickel every time on defense, same thing for the offense. Oh, they're a nickel again. Same person. Do they have a certain line? Nope, same linebacker in there. Do they have the certain front in there? Nope, same edge and D tackles. It's just you're not giving them anything to pull at, any thread to pull at. So this is just another version of that where you're making them honor. And then defensively, Chris Shula, they're in so much dime that again, that it's a defense that I don't go, oh, they're in dime. Here comes a blitz look. Oh, they're in dime. Here comes this front. They do all the dime. So it's just, again, it's just kind of, they're always on the forefront of doing something. This brings us back to one of our OG conversations on Brandon Staley. Sean McVay knows how to ID these defensive coaches that are ones that make it the hardest on offenses. And that's what Shula has been doing on defense because it's the same body types all over the place. And it's been really cool to watch this Rams team this year.
So I'm curious what you think about this. The Rams have been running more dime for the last 2 years than any defense in the NFL. They do a ton of it. They're clearly leaning into it. I think the McCreary thing is kind of like a declaration of intent about making, like, we're going to do even more of this than you're seeing us doing. The game that the Bills just played against the Chiefs on Sunday night, or on Sunday, do you think that is maybe like a Big Bang sort of moment about the usage of dime personnel in the NFL in a more widespread way? Like 2 years from now, do you think we'll look back on that game that the Bills played against the Chiefs on Sunday and say that was the moment when the light bulb turned on and the NFL got wise to the fact that maybe dime is the future?
Maybe. Because it's just the next step of what we've been saying with Big Nickel. All right, we got all these safeties we can grab. All right, let's get one in the box now. It's just, I just
think about like how unpredictable
short
they
answer,
felt.
yes.
Like that, like because with Mahomes specifically, he's been doing such a good job of being able to identify pre-snap what you're going to do and deciding before the ball's even snapped, I'm going to go here in half a second. There's nothing you can do about it. And the Bills, because of having as many pass defense bodies on the field as they did and being able to disguise things in the way that they did, they took that away from him. And so maybe it's not going to be like a big thing. Maybe it's just like a Chiefs specific thing. But I just hearing you talk about the Rams and then having that game be fresh in my mind, it's like maybe there's something here. Like maybe there's like a kernel of something here to kind of think about as we move forward.
Well, there's 2 very good defensive coordinators in LA right now. And you know who else runs a lot of dime? Jesse Minter and the Chargers. So I would say Jesse Minter is a pretty damn good coach. And the fact that he wants to lean into that, even they have tangible linebackers they can play. I was even thinking the Vikings have been funky with their personnel because of some injuries and stuff like that. But I was breaking down a play and the kind of where Metellus really helps slow down offenses is how are the Vikings using Metellus on this play? All right, he's lined up over the tight end. Usually if a 44 is lined up over a tight end, kind of know what I'm getting here. Probably a certain cover. But is he a blitzer? Is he a zone? Is he a flat defender here? Is he, it's just playing with that. So what you're speaking to, again, it takes away ways I can indicate what the defense is doing. If I have 6 DBs, any of them can blitz, any of them can do anything, it just takes away going like, who, as a protection wise, who's the likely blitzer or the likely pass rusher? Because that's how you declare it on offense. And it's just taking away a card that they can play. So again, there's great theorizing this with you because I do see more teams probably doing it. And just the body types that are coming through in college and stuff that are maybe used to playing these light bodies.
And if we have fewer linebackers that we feel good about, and it does feel like that's happening, right? That there are just fewer linebackers you feel good
It's a good
about in
linebacker class
coverage.
this draft, though.
Thank
So
God.
that
I
I'm
like
like, no,
that's
no, there's like 4 potential first-round linebackers this draft. So,
the
yeah, I
amount
know.
of,
So
like, terrible linebacker play in the NFL
it's
right now,
awful.
it's an epidemic. I mean, it is so, so bad, and so
So bad.
maybe that is one of the reasons is that and the
Yep.
Rams are obviously the perfect example of this. The Rams
So do
don't
not
have
believe in
the Rams
linebackers.
it's easy for the Rams to play dime because they've never invested in a linebacker one
Yeah,
time, so
ever.
it's just something to think about, like, that game maybe I'm overstating it, and maybe it's
No,
just the
no,
most
no.
recent thing I watched, but that was just one of those games where it's like, it feels like this matters in a maybe a bigger picture way.
And I don't even know if it's just dime they do, but even the Cardinals defense does some cool stuff. And even there, like, their stuff is they have so many hybrid bodies up front too. So
Mhm.
it's like, all right, Zaven Collins, any snap, be an off-ball linebacker, be an edge rusher, be an interior rusher, be in coverage, do any of those. And so, okay, but they have personnel groupings where it's 1 defensive lineman, 5 linebackers, and 5 DBs. As an offense, all right, who's the most likely rusher of like 5 linebackers? Slide it, slide it. So you're just taking away a card an offense could play. So great theorizing this with you because it's kind of the same stuff I've kind of been noticing. It was just making it a little harder on everybody.
Rollis is so unhinged, man. He's
He's
like
awesome.
he's on a whole
His
different level. It's just like
He's nuts.
scheme weirdo. He is like he's the best.
It,
All
it,
right.
it's true. It's truly knuckleball. It's the knuckleball defense. Like it's yeah. His brother Mike, his name was Madcap Moss. His original name was Riddick Moss because he's a Vikings fan, Randy Moss. And I was like, I think your brother's the Madcap defensive coordinator because he's out of his mind
It
with the
is really
stuff he's
funny.
doing.
We've talked about it a lot over the course of the offseason because I was fascinated by what they would do as they got better players and whether they would still be as funky, and they're still pretty funky. And
Pretty
it's
funny.
just and the irony is that people used to on Gannon for being so simple, and that he hires a defensive coordinator that is just like an absolute insane
Yes.
person. And
Yeah.
they have a great relationship, like truly, like
Yes.
one that is built on like very mutual respect. And I think there's a very healthy creative tension between them, and talking to each of them about the other one is a very cool thing. But just that like professional partnership between those two guys is kind of like odd couple-y, but they
Yeah.
tend to make it work on that side of the ball, which I find very funny.
Yeah, I know their personalities are wildly different now that I think on it. I'm talking about.
All right, so you had Chris Shula as yours. I'm gonna do a coach, kind of 2 coaches for my next one here. We talked a lot about Josh McDaniels yesterday on the half-season award show. I think he could easily be the assistant coach of the year. To me, he's in the conversation for it. It reminds me a little bit, and I've made this comparison a decent amount this year. It reminds me a little bit of like watching the Broncos offense last year, where it's nothing crazy, right? It's not all these like bells and whistles and motions and like it. I've said this before. Like if I was explaining to a layman why the Dolphins offense 2 years ago was cool, it would be very easy to do. I think it's harder to do that with offenses like last year's Broncos or like this
Yep.
year's
Yep.
Patriots.
I get
But
exactly what you're
why
saying.
I wanted to mention McDaniels and then the other guy was Klayton Adams is
Yeah. Okay. Good.
because uh,
I figured you would bring him up, so I didn't bring him up. So good.
here's the reason that I'm bucketing those 2 guys together. And
Yeah.
it's because, again, I think sometimes as members of the internet football hipster community, we can put a lot of increased emphasis on the I think is cool, right? Like that's cool. And so that's what we want to like talk about and think about. The Patriots offense and the Cowboys offense, there's some interesting things they're doing, but it's not good in a
Traditional.
loud way. It is very
Yeah.
like rooted in like fundamental ideas. And the word I would use to describe both of these offenses and why I think both of them have been very good this year and very compelling to watch is cohesion, right? When you watch both of these offenses, a lot of the stuff is fundamental and not simple. Simple is a word that has negative connotations, but it's familiar, right? A lot of the stuff is
Yeah. Yeah.
familiar, but it's all tied together in a way that makes perfect sense. The runs and the play actions are tied together. The personnel groupings are tied together in a way that makes sense. And when you watch those offenses, there's a smoothness to it in the way that it all runs because it feels so cohesive. And I think those types of offenses we don't talk or think about enough because it's not as showy, but those are the types of offenses often. Why is that team better than we thought they were going to be? Oh, because it all makes sense. And that's not that like it's not earth-shattering to say that, but I think those 2 offenses this year specifically have been like a jarring reminder of that idea. And that's why I wanted to mention both of them.
Yes, the soundness of it all. Like, again, it's I think McDaniels is the best example. Even when he got hired, people were asking me like, "Oh, is this a great fit for Drake May?" I was like, "Well, this offense will be sound, so it won't be frustrating." Like, so I won't watch it and go like, "Oh, why are they doing that stupid play? Like, why are they doing that concept that doesn't have an answer? Or like, why are they running that gadget play into a blitz?" And when you watch them, there's not a lot of plays with that. It's more, they just lose. Like a guy loses a one-on-one or something of that sort. Obviously, you need a quarterback to operate to lift up that ceiling, I should say. But it's a floor-raising kind of schemes, and it's schemes that I believe in as well. It's like it's very, very familiar to me from what my dad did and also what we did at Wisconsin. But not just because they use fullbacks, not just because they use tight ends and everything, but just even just run game wise, it's always a hat on a hat. There's never a lot of unblocked guys, which zone running teams will have unblocked guys just by definition. And if you really lean into it, that can get ugly if you don't, really channel it. Watch the Texans against the Seahawks. I know not a lot of people wanted to watch that, but watch that short yardage sequence that they had. They had a 3rd and 1 and then 4th and 1. They got stuffed 2 times in a row. First off, should not be running with one of the worst offensive lines in the league against one of the best defensive lines in the league. That's just that's not even theory. That's just math. But it's just like watching them, the run plays they ran, they are unsound. It's not that, oh, it's not a run play that doesn't exist. It's just that it's impossible to block against the defensive fronts that they were going against. I drew lines trying to figure it out and I always try to give leeway to the coaches and go like, well, they probably didn't design it this way. It was probably just someone botching. And I'm watching, I'm like, you literally can't block these plays. Like those plays are dead on arrival and they're 2 of the biggest plays of the game. And you're running into that. To me, that's why I'm like, all right, Texans, I don't care how much better they get. It's like, I'm already like, they're already like behind the 8 ball for me. Like, I'm just like, all right, I'm ready to knock you into the pocket and never deal with you guys again. But just with these offenses, yeah, they're not the sexiest thing. They don't have the craziest motion. Everything's traditional. That's the word I always kind of use.
Yeah,
It's
traditional is a good word.
it's a traditional NFL offense. It's these offenses that just get distilled over years and years on the concepts that work against all defensive fronts, defensive coverages. So I'm with you. I'm glad you brought up Klayton Adams because again, honestly, him losing or going from the Cardinals to the Cowboys was one of my biggest kind of misses as a predictor this year. Was I didn't knock it enough for the Cardinals offense and I didn't boost the Cowboys offense enough because of what he provides. And again, some of those concepts that he does, even run game wise, it's just adding just a little flourish to traditional like split zone. All right, let's just have the tight end motion and motion back real quick. Oh wow, that's crazy. But if I drew it up on it's just the exact same drawing I drew up on a play 15 years ago. But again, I'm with you. I really like what these 2 are doing. So I'm glad you mentioned both of them. The soundness of both offenses.
Yeah, again, it's just something that I need to remind myself of every once in a while, where it's like these things that maybe don't seem sexy and exciting in real time are actually the right choice, right? Like that
Right.
there is like the floor raising is a good way to put it, like soundness, just like a certain reliability to offenses that we take for granted at times. And I think sometimes we should not take them for granted. All right, so
Es-
who's your last one?
especially when you have a quarterback. That's the thing. It's like you don't need to do the bells and whistles when you have a
It's
dude at
literally
quarterback.
all I've said about the Cowboys this year. All they've done is they've used like a league average rate of all of the things that make life easier on the
Yeah.
quarterback, and and they're playing like
And look at them.
ridiculously good football.
I
It's
know.
not an overwhelming ask. It's like I think it's
No.
very reasonable what I've been asking for, and that's all they're doing.
And on top of it, like, even the Pickens edition, it was more like Pickens has been great and everything, but even just that type of player, like, Dak has needed that since Gallup went out to pasture. Like, he's needed that type of player, and then yes, he's a good player on top of it. They just need an average X to, like, help out this offense. So it's like, just these
Not
I know Pickens
Jalen
has got a lot
Tolbert.
of headlines. No, not Jalen Tolbert. No, not
That's
Brandon
like
Cooks.
we didn't necessarily need
Like,
George Pickens. We just needed not Jalen Tolbert, and you're
that's
going to
it.
see some of the results,
You
and that's
you
what
went
they've
from
done.
you were talking about the Ravens 32nd to 1st, like, they just need to go 32nd to 18th, but going to top 10 is pretty nice as well. But no, it's just when you have a dude at quarterback that can do a lot of the hard things, make the easy things easy. And I think that's been Josh McDaniels does deserve credit. We both gave Drake May kind of the midseason MVP, and it's just one of those when watching Drake May, he lifts the ceiling, but now the ecosystem lifts the floor. So it's yeah, I'm right there with you. My last one, of course, I have a couple options, and of course, it's a couple offensive line coaches. I almost said Josh Sweat and Zaven Collins, but it's not like their defense is now up there, but it's like it hasn't told the story of the season. They don't even have a freaking winning
By the
record.
end of the year, I'll be curious how we're talking about the Cardinals defense. I think
Agreed.
that's something that
Walter
second
Nolan
half of the
coming back.
season, now that they're healthy again,
Yeah.
that's one where
It's
I'm
a good
filing that away.
defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the DBs are great. I know. So we were on the same wavelength for that. So a guy that I gave flowers to yesterday, I made him on my short list for assistant coach of the year so far, midseason point, is Tony Sparano Jr., offensive line coach for the Colts. I don't know if I have to list off anything, but the Colts run game's pretty good. If you watch this Colts team this year, top 2 run game, any way you shake it. And talking about soundness, and that's what offensive line coaches provide, and that's what he's provided. It's not, they do some cool stuff with formations and some motion stuff. But you got to remember Steichen's the North Turner guy, very traditional. And then you got Tony Sparano Jr., literally Tony Sparano's son, very traditional how they do things. The run game is very traditional, but they never run into bad boxes. They never go into bad looks. And then they got a superstar running back that just takes it over the top. So same discussion we're talking about with like floor raising coordinators and everything for the quarterback. Same thing with the running back and same thing with the offensive line. They're going to do the stuff that puts it over the top. The Colts have been so much fun to watch every week this year. I gladly ate crow on them like 2 weeks into the season. I'm like, yeah, this is a good offense.
Yeah, it was instantaneous. It was like one of those things where it's just like, yep, nah, we're good.
No, I was wrong. Okay,
here.
fine. Yep, we're good. This is a top 10 offense done. And then now it's been like top 10 historical offense. But no, I think Sparano Jr. has been one of these. I had no opinion on him going into this year, put it that way. And now I watch this Colts team and I'm like, oh, that's good run stuff. Oh, okay. I saw why you motioned that guy to get this look. Okay. That makes sense to me what you're doing. And even pass protection wise, have you seen many games where Daniel Jones, I know the Steelers game just happened, but if you just watch the whole game, it wasn't as bad as it maybe seems. Turnovers suck. Who knew? But just watching, do you think Daniel Jones has ever been just like, it's because on 3rd and long, they got a great protection plan. On play action, they got a great protection plan. And that's the offensive line coach, and that's what they put their fingers in every single week. And that's how they make their impact in every week. And so, yeah, the proof is in the pudding, of course, with the results. But I think the process of Sparano Jr. and this Colts entire team, or offense, has been really, really cool to watch.
We talked about this a lot, but just this idea of the value, like the very tangible value of one of these difference-making offensive line coaches.
Oh,
and I think we know who the guys are, right? Like, think about what Jeff Stoutland has done. You think about what
Stoutland should have a trophy right next to Rocky.
It's unbelievable like what it does for your organization. And I think Hank Fraley has become one of those guys, right? Like you just look at what the offensive line, it's like this, it's like a machine. Like you go into it and like you walk out transformed into like a workable NFL offensive lineman. Like that's what the Lions have in their building now because Hank Fraley exists. And when you have one of those, there are a lot of intangible benefits to it, but there are also like very real financial benefits to it. And like the Colts are the perfect example of this to me. Okay. So right now, Ryan Kelly is making like $10 million a year from the Vikings. Tanner Bornolini is on a $1.2 million cap hit this year.
Throw pick.
Yeah. Will Fries is making $17 million a year, 17.5 from the Vikings. Matt Gonsalves is making about $1 million a year at right guard. This offseason, I would not be surprised if they moved on from Braden Smith, who's going to be a free agent. They drafted Jalen Travis in the 4th round this year. And at this point, are you betting against their ability to turn Jalen Travis into a starting caliber offensive lineman?
Nope.
So when Braden Smith gets $20 million a year this offseason, which he probably will because right tackles as good as Braden Smith don't usually hit free agency, we're going to be in a place where because of the offensive line ecosystem created in Indianapolis, they're saving $40 million in value that they can use on other players because of the development pipeline that they have created. That's crazy.
It's not just like offensive system hack. It's like a franchise hack. It's just I've been fascinated with kind of the baseball 3-point, maybe because the Mariners are relevant again, so now I'm all into baseball again. It's since the last time we've done a pod together, they're way more relevant. No, but it's just I like watching now. It's like, okay, well, if everybody's into Moneyball and everybody's into on-base percentage and every other stuff that came up, all right, what are the edges? Player development is the edge. Look who the San Francisco Giants just hired. They hired a college coach who has no professional experience. And I know who knows what happens there, but that's been fascinating to me. It's kind of like more things change, more they stay the same. But
your players need to get better in order for you to succeed as a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we need our 4th round pick to actually be something and not just be an idea. Like, why don't you get better, poke a stick at him? Why aren't you getting better? And like, honestly, one of the biggest hacks you can have is an offensive line coach that has a ceiling on how far high he wants to rise up the ranks. You need a Dante Scarnecchia. We just mentioned
Stalin doesn't give a shit about
Stalin
being an offensive
does not
coordinator. He'll be
care.
there
Does not
making
care.
whatever he makes forever.
That was the issue with my dad. He cared too much about that. So it says Howard Mudd, another one from the Colts back in the day. But if you get a guy that actually you can have this infrastructure, what the Bucks are doing right now, keeping the Blake
Kevin Carberry.
Carberry.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal too. They just had injuries, but that's a hack as well. Like the Rams with McVay's had a couple guys, but he always wants a guy that's a true
Ryan Wendell's there
guy.
now, and I think they really
Yes.
like Ryan Wendell there. Yes.
And Klayton Adams I think Klayton Adams might be getting a head coaching shot too if he really wants it. I think he actually deserves it. I don't know how he is as an interview, but coaching wise, he's very good. But getting these guys it's just been boosting these guys. Like you said, you brought up the contract implications. The Colts lost their 2 best linemen, or not their 2 best linemen. That's a lie. They lost 2 good linemen, and they got better with younger players. That's rare, and that just speaks to what they're doing.
It's so hard to do. And again, like this idea, there's no cap on coaches. And so you're saving $40 million against the cap. How much do you think Tony Sparano Jr. is making?
Oh, less than
$500,000. If
yeah,
like, and like
600.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
those are guys where like, if you have a good one, it's hard to figure out how much, if it's like, it's hard to overpay them. It's hard to get to a point where it's like, oh, that guy's worth $5 million a year. Yes. If he's really good, yes, he absolutely is worth $5 million a year.
The 3rd most important person, or on the staff, I should say. It's head coach, OC, O-line coach, and I would say maybe whoever is in charge of the 3rd down, DB coverage stuff, on top of that as well. But they're so important.
My last one, let's stick with the Colts. It's Daniel Jones.
Yeah, great
one. And
actually, I feel
it's
bad
like,
not mention them.
and this is such an easy jumping off point, and it's something that we've revisited a ton over the last couple years. But it's the coolest story about professional football in the last 2 seasons is what has happened with these second chance retread quarterbacks. Like, just think about it's happening every year. Like, we had Darnell last year. We have Daniel Jones this year. We had Baker the year before that. Geno is in that mix. Jared Goff was traded for nothing. The contract was a throw-in. And Jared Goff is now one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. And so the fact that all of these guys, and I just think there's so many layers to this, and I think we'll do like a real considered look at this at some point on the show in the back half of the season, because I think you could spend an hour easily talking about this idea, because I feel like there are player development things to dig into here. There are psychological things to dig into here. There are financial things to dig into here, because if you look at this, and I've talked about this a bunch, but like the Baker contract, for example, right? So Baker gets a 1-year, $4 million deal to come to Tampa. And then
so crazy.
So $4 million, right? And so even that part of this is fascinating, right? So Baker gets a $4 million deal to come to Tampa in 2023. Now, in part because these guys have succeeded, the price tag for the 1-year retread reclamation projects is $15 million because of how much this is working.
Yeah.
Jones got 15 and Justin Fields got more. Justin Fields got 2 years of guarantees because of what's happened with these types of things. So you're already seeing, I think, the agents for these types of players get a little bit wise to this. But if you look at the multi-year financial outlook of it, Baker had a $4 million cap hit in 2023. He has a $7 million cap hit in 2024 and a $26.5 million cap hit in 2025. So let's do the math on that. That is about $37 million over 3 years. That's what Caleb Williams makes. So this idea of a rookie quarterback contract, if you can get one of these guys that maybe it's less upside because we've seen them fail to an extent, but we've also seen them play in the NFL. Like, there is more certainty with this than there is with a guy like Anthony Richardson, for example. And so you're having to pay a little bit more, but not that much more. And so if you feel good about a certain level of reliability with these guys, with everything else about your infrastructure being good, if you can tab the next one of them and he becomes available, there's like real value to be had here. So if you're a team next year and you think, you know what, Kyler, they didn't get the most of him in Arizona, but I think we can do it. And so Kyler's contract is obviously bigger than these guys, but it's a lot of base salaries now. The buy signing bonuses are already paid out. You can play with some of the money and you can get it to a place where you're not paying him that much if you were to trade for him. And so I think these things will continue to happen because it's not a rookie quarterback contract, but it's not $55 million a year. It's somewhere in between. And so
QB
I
middle
just think
class. You love the
it,
QB middle class.
it's I'm
You've always been
fascinated by
fascinated
it.
with it. Yeah, you always have because because it didn't exist for a couple of years. It felt like
There
and then you're
was a stretch with like Andy Dalton and Colin Kaepernick where they got those deals that were
Dalton,
kind of middle class
Dalton.
deals,
Yeah,
and then it went
yeah,
away. And so
yeah,
now it's kind of back. And
yeah.
so this idea of like all of these guys they're 27, 28. They're more developed as players, like they understand the game more. And so these guys who are hyper talented, are we at a place where their second stop is actually the place where you can get the most out of that talent? It's just there are so many different aspects to this that I feel like are, again, just dictating the way that the NFL feels this year and has felt over the last couple years, that even if this idea is kind of old hat now because we've seen it 4 or 5 times over, the fact that it happened again for a team that is the best offense in the NFL and fancies itself a Super Bowl contender, it's worth bringing it up again. Like, this is not going away.
It's getting to that same because the ideal of having a quarterback on a rookie contract, of course, is okay, build up the rest of the team, and now we just at the cost and everything. Okay, cool. But usually you have a bell curve. There's not been many rookies that are outright good. They're encouraging, but league average is a win. It's almost like an NBA rookie. It's like league average is a huge win for your first year at quarterback. All right, let's work out the kinks and pay him the same amount. Let's just get year 2 through 4 quarterback play. But now they're 27, and and then also the lowering of expectations helps too.
Absolutely. That's a psychological aspect of it. That's real.
Yes. But yeah, not only just the players, but just even how you sell it to everybody. Like,
Mhm.
that matters so much. Okay,
That's such a great point. The patience it creates and like the leniency it creates is very different.
Leniency in the weirdest way because people's expectations are lower. Fans, the staff. Oh, well, he's this because he's this. He's always been that. But also when it starts working out right, like Baker or something like that, or just other guys. Well, this guy's played in big games before. As opposed to a second-year quarterback craps out, goes, will he ever be able to figure it out? And again, I'm not saying any of this is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is easy, the human element of all this, to sell it. Well, of course he had a bad game. That's why we signed him for so cheap. Of course he had a bad game. That's why he's on his third team. But it like makes the excuses for everybody, and it makes almost less pressure on the quarterback in a weird way.
It's so true. Like they're paying Sam Darnold $33 million a year in Seattle. Every Sam Darnold, obviously it's gone as better than anybody ever could have hoped.
Yeah.
But let's say it didn't. Every game wouldn't have been a weekly referendum on whether or not Sam Darnold is good, even though he's making 3.5 times what Caleb Williams is making.
Absolutely not. It's just, look at every second-year quarterback's fan base right now. Oh my God. It's just like,
I live it every day.
I know you do. And I get to dip my toes in and out when they're doing well. And then it's just, if I even say anything that's not like this guy's going to be an MVP in their future, oh my God, I just say he's the worst quarterback ever. But if I say that about Darnold or Baker or something like that, and then people just go, yeah, okay. Like, it's just like, even for me as an analyst, it's actually a little bit easier because it's just like, well, yeah, I've already seen it. Like proof of concept, whatever you want to put, expectations, self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever you want to say. But it's just kind of funny how just the narrative changes with all these guys.
How much better would our lives be? The anxiety of fans and just the hit rate on players if we just said every quarterback must sit for 3 years before they get to play.
It'd be so much better.
Everything would just be so much better in life.
So much better. Oh my God, I go through it with prospects right now, and because I'm an idiot and do a midseason big board, and so I've learned my lesson, from doing this for a few years now, is just don't get into the conversations week in, week out. Just drop in. Watch the 4 games, drop right back out. But it's just also even at I'm just acting like an evaluator. I'll talk about this in December and January because I've realized even just you talk about any of the quarterbacks or any players, and you're like, that was your receiver 1. I'm like, yeah, it was. It was. So, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, I just watched those 4 games, just the week in, week out, results-based, like, analyst that happens. It's just like, oh, it's exhausting. But yes, I agree. Every quarterback should sit for at least 2 years.
We'll make it happen. We need the money you pay that guy will not go against your salary cap. Like there are ways we can figure this out. We will solve quarterback development at some point in the next year. We'll put our heads together and we'll figure this out.
Every week you don't play him, you get that money back on your cap. Like, it's just a boost. It's like, yeah, I can come up with some board game.
If we can save the owner's money somewhere along the way, that
they'll
will
be all over it.
We will be able to convince people.
They'll be
Nate
all
Tice,
over it.
it's always good to do this
Rubber
with you,
mace.
buddy. Missed
So much
doing it
fun.
with you. Had such a fun time over the last couple days. Please tell everyone where they can check out the work that you are now doing over at Yahoo.
Over at Yahoo. Yeah, Football 301 is the main squeeze with Charles McDonald and Matt Harmon. Podcast Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday live shows. Before your live show, you can do a double header. You can go our show, Sunday Night Football, then Athletic Football Show live show. Everybody wins. Everybody's happy about it. Also, written work over at Yahoo, and then TV stuff, NFL Network. Check me out on Thursdays. Not this week, though. Get the week off, which is kind of nice.
Awesome. Thanks for the time, buddy. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate you doing it.
Thanks for having me. Always a blast.
All right, guys, that's all we got for today. If you have not checked out our free agent live stream, that is available in your guys' podcast feeds. We dropped it in there. We did it live on YouTube, but we felt like, people would want to listen to that. So that is available in your podcast feeds. And Kurt, what did I say? Free agency? I keep doing that. I've done it like 5 times over the last week. Your trade deadline recap is available in your podcast feeds. The free agency one, I don't think would do much good right now, considering we did it in March. So please check that out if you have not. Our Week 10 preview will be on your feeds on Friday. So please check that out as well. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for watching. Follow The Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.